In today's episode, I'm going to show you why you got to be really careful when you buy a kit off eBay that somebody has built, like a vintage audio kit, like a Dynakit or a LuxKit or any of those other ones that somebody has built. You never know what you're getting, and this could happen to you. So this is a LuxKit A3400 preamplifier. These were kits, and these things sell for a lot of money. And I guess if they're built properly, they might be worth a few bucks, but not the thousands of dollars. I certainly wouldn't pay $1,000 for a tube preamp kit. Maybe some people would, but the problem with these is, well, a lot of them were built by amateurs. You might as well be a Heath kit. And this particular one, listen to what happens when you press the tone button. Now, it shouldn't do that. This was brought to me by a guy that bought this thing off eBay, and this is how he got it. Now, the volume control didn't work properly on it, and he took it to another shop, and they put a new volume control in, but when you put the tone on, it doesn't have the gain, or tone defeat. Actually sounds better than the tone. See, every time you switch it, and when you switch the controls, when I go down to -5, listen how much louder it pops up. When I go down to -5, it's actually louder. So I might even just walk away from this thing, because I opened it up to look inside it, and well, this is what I discovered. This is the big problem with a lot of kits. Look at this mess on the board. Look at the crap solder connections on this thing here. I'm surprised that this thing even works at all. I mean, take a look at... I mean, I'm going to have to completely rework this whole entire unit for this fella. And I don't know, how much he's going to want to spend, but I'm certainly not going to do this for nothing, that's for sure. First of all, I would try and find a manual for this thing just so I can make sure it's wired correctly. But I mean, I'm just looking at the way that the soldering's done on here, and it just leaves me shaking my head. But this is how a lot of these kits are, right? I mean, these kits were built back in the 1970, 74, 73 when this was out, and a lot of them were built by students, because this would not have been a very expensive amplifier kit at the time. By comparison, the kits usually were cheaper than the factory assembled. That's what the attraction was to building it yourself. And a lot of them were done by students that were studying electronics, and well, a lot of them didn't know what they were doing. And case in point, look at this horrible soldering job on this one. But here's something else I've noticed on here, and I haven't even got into this yet. Check this out. What the crap is that? It's like, oh my God, what am I getting myself into? You know, I might be further ahead just to walk away from this thing before I invest any time. Although I'd really, this would be a nice piece when it's working, but I mean, I'm just looking at this horrendous solder job on here. Like, these switches, somebody has shorted them together. How this thing even works is beyond me. I mean, it's tubes, so it's pretty tough to burn out a tube amplifier, but no wonder this thing's popping and clicking and making all the noises it's making. And the fact that when you turn the bass control all the way to minimum, the volume pops up. It's like the switch is wired incorrectly. So, I got my work cut out on this. At the very least, I'm going to have to resolder every single connection, but I'm going to have to go through and make sure every one of these wires is connected to the correct point. Because I see that they're all numbered, but I don't know where they go, because I don't have a manual for this thing. And I've spent the last half a day so far trying to find a manual for this thing, and of course I can't find any manuals, at least not ones that, I'm not going to go to eBay and pay a pile of money for a manual. Unless the guy that owns it wants to buy the manual. If he wants to buy the manual, then that's up to him. But anyway, this is what I'm up against on this project. Wish me luck. But have you ever seen such shoddy workmanship? I'm just going to unplug this thing. It looks like there's a short right here. Are these connected together, I wonder? I think they are. Probably on the same trace, but oh, that is just, that's horrible. I mean, that's reminds me of stuff that I did when I was about 10 years old. You know, but again, a lot of these preamps, and this is the thing, if you're looking to buy one of these things on eBay, just bear in mind that this is likely what you're going to find, a lot of these, because back in the day when these were built, these were not audiophiles that were building these things. They were hobbyists, and a lot of hobbyists didn't have a lot of experience, and you know, it shows when you see workmanship like this. Yikes! So I've unplugged this unit. I'm just going to go through and I've discharged all the caps. Just want to make sure that I got them all, because I'm sure there's still juice on some of these things. Being a tube amp, the caps won't necessarily discharge on their own like they would on a solid state, so I have to make sure that I've got all the tubes discharged, or tubes, all the capacitors discharged, because these things will hold 3 volts. That's not going to hurt me. 3 volts, I don't think I need to worry about that. What I'm worried about is hundreds of volts, because some of these tubes will, or some of these caps will store several hundred volts. That will bite you pretty quick if you're not careful. 3 volts. Yeah, I think we're okay with 3 volts. Just double make sure that it's dead. Two volts, yeah, we're okay. Make sure all the high voltage stuff is discharged before I start poking my fingers into this thing, because I don't really feel like getting a jolt today. I'm just going to look and see, make sure. I think these wires, they're all labeled and they correspond, but I mean, what a disaster. Like, nothing's even tied up. The wires are just all spaghetti in this thing. No wonder the glass guy that looked at this thing gave up. See, Q6, where does it go? Does it go? It goes to 27, whatever the hell that is. See, I'm going to need a manual for this thing. I think G1 goes to, I'm just looking to see where these go. That's going to G3. K1 to K3. Q6 to 27. Yeah, I'm going to have to dig up a manual, I think, for this, just so I know, because I don't know if any of these, the way that this is behaving, I don't know that this is wired right. I have a feeling it's not, just the way that the tone amp is cutting in and out on this thing. I have a sneaking suspicion. I mean, look at this crap. Look at this down here. See, it's just like, it just tacked wires on, and ugh, ugly, very ugly. I just had a little chit chat with the owner of it, and he's going to try and locate a manual too. But this is, I just wanted to get this video out quick, just to let any of you guys know that you're thinking about buying any of these kits. Keep in mind that an awful lot of Heath kits and an awful lot of home-built amps that are now selling on the vintage market are like this. I just wanted to put this up quick, let you guys take a look at the inside of these things, because these things are quite the collector's items these days. They're a vacuum tube preamp, and I know that they command some fairly high dollars, like $1,000 plus for this. And if you get one that's properly built, and that the person that put it together knows what they're doing. See, this has had all the caps replaced. Somebody's gone and changed all these caps out, which is good, because the old ones have all been taken out, and they've all been replaced. All the electrolytics, all the caps have been replaced on here. But it, you know, and it sounds fine in flat mode, but as soon as you turn on the tone control, It's bad. It was like that when he bought it, and now I got to try and figure out what is wrong with it. And as you saw, the switches over here had shorts on them, and you know, it's and the soldering on here is atrocious. So, but just for shits and giggles, as they say, this mess down here where these are all bridged together, I'm going to just take that, unflow that bridge solder. I mean, oh, look at this. It's even this. It's like, it's just, I don't know. I might be further ahead just to wash my hands of this thing and say, hey, guess what? I'm not getting married to this unit. This is scary. I'm sorry I'm laughing, but I mean, it's just so bad. There's a chance, if these wires are actually in the right place, there's a chance if I went through and resoldered the whole board, it probably would fix it. But I mean, it's just an absolute joke. And maybe that's where I should start on this thing before I even get the manual. Maybe we'll go through and just redo all these connections while I've got it apart, and including it on this video here, and just see whether just reflowing every single one of these connections will correct this thing, because I think its workmanship is what's caused this thing not to work. And I don't think this thing's ever worked has ever worked properly since it was built. I don't think it's ever worked right. But again, I don't know the history of it, because the guy that brought it to me, he bought it in this condition. And I guess that's what the warning on this video is if you're buying something like this, if you're buying anything used, especially when it's a kit, buyer beware, because this is what's floating around on eBay, and it creates a real nightmare for the purchaser when they try to find someone who's willing to work on it, because a lot of guys would say, "Fuck it, I'm not touching this." And I should probably say that myself. I just talked to the fellow on the phone and I let him know that hey, this is what we're up against, and I need a manual before I can do anything. I'm letting my soldering iron warm up here, because I'm going to take this bridge out here, and I'm just gonna I'm gonna try and clean up this mess here, because it's just, there's a good chance that that's where the problem is just bad soldering from the get-go. At least there's a possibility that that's where the problem is. So let's see if I can fix this this mess down here that you guys can't see, because those wires are in the way. I can see them. There we go, that's a little better. I took all the solder off. I'll have to redo the switch now. Okay, I'm gonna go do all these connections along here. I think the problem's in this in the cathode follower, because that popping goes away. If I unplug this tube, the popping goes away when you change these settings. It's still got sound, but the popping goes away until the tubes cool down, because these three tubes are wired in series. So when the filaments cool down on the other tubes, of course the sound goes out. But during that cool down process, there's sound, even with the cathode follower tube unplugged. But it doesn't have the popping, clicking, and all the noises that does when it's plugged in. So we may have a short here that I might just be able to discover when I get the big magnifiers on and stare at this thing. I almost not even soldered on. See that? That wasn't even soldered, that wire. Maybe my problem might be right here. That's why you got to get the wire hot, right? Not just heat the solder up. That's the big problem with a lot of these kits, is that they were done by, they were done by students or people that had no experience, and they didn't know how to solder, and they didn't get things hot enough. And if you don't get a good hot connection, especially when you're connecting external wires, you end up with intermittent connections. There's another one that's not tacked down. It came right off. And this is one I'll actually make money on, because this guy's got a lot of money to spend, and he likes his toys. So if I can get this thing going for him and get that noise problem to stop, then he'll be very grateful. And pay me well for it. I might not need to resolder every single connection on here, but I'm certainly going to redo all the ones that don't look good, because there's a bunch of them here that just look horrible. We get into areas like this part of the board here where there's a trace that's broken right there, and I'm going to have to put a bit of jumper wire over that. We'll just get some and jumper that piece of the board that's is damaged here. Here we get some more, see, some solder splashes on the board here. Just take that out of there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do this one board. I'm just going to reflow this entire board and see whether that makes any difference. In the way that this thing operates. Because I have found several connections that have been bad so far. Several of those wires weren't soldered down very good at all. And one pin on one of the tubes, on the tube socket, was dry. Oh, quitting time. Okay, now it's into double time territory. It's 4 o'clock. I've only been working on this thing for the past, I don't know, couple of hours. I started trying to find the manual for it around 1 o'clock today when I first opened it up. And as I say, no luck finding a manual on any of the normal sites like Hi-Fi Engine and so forth. That's because it's a kit. The manuals for these things would have typically been supplied with them as a kit. Because this was not a commercial product, there wasn't the service manuals issued like they would have for a commercial product. That would have all been supplied when the unit was new as a kit. Okay, this is my audio input down here, or audio output, one of the two. Shielded wires. Another wire just ready to pop right off. Okay, all I've done nothing other than resolder connections. I'm hearing a bit of noise on here right now. There's probably still some that are bad because I haven't done them all. But I've only done the ones on the main board. Now, you remember before when I was pushing the button in? Oh, guess what? It's not going pop, pop, pop anymore. Get something a bit more bass in here. it's that low pass filter that's causing all the noise. Haha, listen to this. And when I kick it to 80 hertz, we're getting closer. Balance control still not working properly because when I take it all the way to the left, I'm still hearing stuff out of the right channel. I think, maybe not. Oh, just hearing a buzz. Hearing a buzz out of the right channel, which is always there. We got to figure out why it's buzzing and why this low pass filter still short. That's where that switch was shorted out, right on that board. So I'm getting closer to finding the problem. And if I turn on tone defeat, it's fine. Still, the low pass filter still kind of messes up. So what does this mean? This means back to the drawing board and discharge those caps and spend some more time resoldering, because I'm pretty convinced myself now that that's where the problem is going to be. The only thing I've done is I've just resoldered this board. I didn't do any of the other ones. I didn't do this one. I didn't do this one. This is the phono preamp. I just did the preamp board. I didn't do the headphone amp, and I didn't do the filter, other than take out that short on the switch. Something is in that filter board is a problem. But now that we've got part of the problem solved, at least the tone control works now without making a deafening pop, and that was caused by, I'm sure, that short. There may be some parts damaged on this, but anyway, I'm gonna discharge all the caps on this thing again, and we'll take another stab into the filter circuit on this thing. Just watching the voltage discharge now. Make sure all the power supplies are dead on this thing, because I don't need to get a shock. Don't particularly enjoy them. I don't enjoy getting an electric shock more than anybody else, and bloody tube equipment is so damn hazardous to work on. So always make sure that you discharge completely. I used a resistor to bring the main filter down, and now I've just got a short across the main filters just to let them completely discharge. Okay, we're dead. This thing's down. Down to 0. Now I can look into this board again. So I found a broken trace on the board. So I'm just replacing it with a piece of wire. That's where these tools come in real handy, is when you need to do stuff like that. Try doing that with your side cutters. Really, seriously, try doing that with side cutters. For all the electrician's scissors, the Klein and the Miller, I've got some Millers too, that are every bit as good. But yeah, try doing that with your side cutters. Cut that off nice and neat like that. But yeah, I found a few bad spots on this board here. For one, here's the AC line coming in here. You wonder why it's got a hum. Look at the 120 volt AC line right next to low level, right next to low level audio. Great choice to build this thing like this. You know, it's like, oh well. Can't do much about it. And people are paying thousands of dollars for these things. Unbelievable. To say I would pay more than about $100 for one of these things. But then I'm cheap, so I'll just build my own. You guys have seen my amplifier builds, my ELE kits, and how good those look and how good those sound done properly. This one here, everything but, oh, another connection that's over here that's just atrocious. This resistor that's just tacked onto the side of the board is not even connected. There we go. That's a little better. Oh, there's another bridge here. There's a bridge right there. If it's not, it's so damn close to being a bridge. Oh, it's just a piece of wire that's clipped off and sitting on the board. It's great having this light on my. See, I put some notches on the side of my visor here so that I can clip this light in various different places depending on where I need it. It's great. It lets me see exactly what I'm working on and get right in there when the lights in the shop aren't good enough. When I've got things on their side like this, this really makes a big difference in being able to see what I'm doing. There's another connection, looks like right here. It's like another break in this trace. Sure looks like a break. Either that or it's not supposed to be connected and it's almost a short. Yeah, it looks like it's supposed to be through. Okay, we'll just put a piece of wire over that one too. I'm going to bring this one right down to the switch where this trace went to. There. Now that is definitely a complete through connection now. Another one that looks kind of questionable right here. In case you guys are wondering how much time I've spent on this thing today, even though I said I wasn't going to do it, I've got almost 5 hours into this thing. But the guy that owned it is one of those few out there that said, cost is not an object, fix it. Oh, that trace is coming off too. Right here. That trace is broken. Yeah, there's a break right there on that trace. if I bend this over, whether I can fix it. Looks like there's another break right here that someone's put a blob of solder over. Yeah, that trace is lifting. I gotta repair that one. So I get my piece of pure copper wire. I'll just tin it. Goes down to the switch right here. Here, that one's now repaired. You can see here, right? So you can see, I don't know if you can see it on camera or not, but it's broken. But you can see it moving. That trace was broken there. And right back to why I say buying vintage kits that other people have built on eBay for premium prices is not a good idea. Never a good idea. Because, as I've said before, these were built by amateurs. Many were built by high school students that had no training, didn't really know what they were doing. They bought these to learn on. Heck, when I was in high school, grade 12 electronics, there was people that were building stuff like this. My project was a black and white video camera. That was my project, and my project worked. It was ugly. It was, I'm sure it was as bad as this. Maybe not as bad as this, but it was ugly. But it worked. Most of my fellow classmates' projects didn't work, and guess who got assigned to help them fix it? You got it. I did. $126 volts on the switch. Yeah, no wonder we're getting that big pop. Yeah, there's something seriously wrong on this board, and I'm going to wait until the owner of this comes up with a construction manual, or well, it'll be a construction manual for this. I'm going to throw it back in his court and put this thing together. I've got it working better than it was. I've still got a problem with this filter, and until I know what way this thing is actually supposed to be wired, because this had all kinds of shorts on it, and until I know how this is supposed to be wired, I think I'm wasting my time on this. I don't see any more bad connections on here like I did on the main board. They certainly had the switches shorted together. Now, they could have damaged other parts doing that, because there's high voltage on the switch, and I mean, maybe we'll end up having to just bypass the low pass filter and high pass filter. Don't want to do that, but that may have to be done if the filter itself is foobarred. But anyway, still got a bit of a buzz on there. Sounds like a grounding problem. It could be one of these wires is to the wrong point, and that's why I need to get the construction manual so that I can verify that everything's actually connected where it was supposed to be connected, and that there's nothing else wrong with it. I was thinking of taking this board out so that I could actually look at the board. The problem is it's got wires that come off both the top and the bottom side, which are not going to be long enough to support removing the board to check it. Plus these are all solid wires, so I don't want to bend them any more than I have to because they're going to break. But I'm going to end this video now because I've spent far too much time on this today, and I've thrown this back in the owner of its court to get me the construction manual for it. I don't care how much he has to pay for it. There are people selling them on eBay, but they're not giving them away. So just like they're not giving away these amps. But I've titled this video appropriately, Why You Shouldn't Buy a Vintage Kit Amplifier off eBay. Because you don't know what you're getting. And there's an awful lot of very poorly constructed kits floating around on eBay now. There's more kits floating around that weren't built properly than were built properly, believe it or not. Same with Heathkit. If you're looking at buying an old pre-constructed Heathkit product, unless it's a ham radio product, most of the hams that bought Heathkit radios and bought Heathkit amplifiers knew what they were doing because they already had their license. They were already a licensed radio amateur, which meant they had their radio communications license. And unlike today, where anybody who's got a pulse and can answer some multiple choice questions gets basically a ham license that, if you listened on the ham bands recently, it sounds like you're listening to the CB radio of the 1970s. But back when the old Heathkit stuff was relevant, those that had their license had to pass very challenging technical exams that challenged their knowledge and challenged their ability to build radio transmitters and receivers. So any of the old Heathkit radios were generally built by people that knew what they were doing. But a lot of this home audio stuff, a lot of these were built by high school and college students that really had not a lot of experience. And you'll see a lot of stuff like this where it's just atrocious, the build. And there's a lot of it floating around on eBay. There's also some stuff that sells on eBay where the seller is an engineer or a tech and he's gone through it and fixed it, but there's more of it that hasn't been. There's more of it out there like this. So let that be a lesson if you're thinking of buying vintage kit amplifiers and kit preamps, that you may get into something that you wish you hadn't gotten into. We'll pick this one up once I get the manual. We'll pick this up and do some more work on it. But miles ahead of where I started, because at least now the bass and treble controls work without thumping every time you touch it. Right now, as I say, I've got, if I plug it back in here, in flat mode it's sounding good. In EQ mode I've got a bit of a hum on one channel. So it's on. It takes a good 30 seconds or so to warm up, because there's a relay down here which keeps the sound muted until the tubes have all fully heated up. So unlike some amplifiers where you can actually hear them warming up and you can hear the sound coming up, this one here keeps everything muted until it's ready to go. Okay, so we get a bit of a hum. Sounds like we may have a bad tube in here too. That might be a tube that's causing that. Definitely got some hum when the tone controls far in. And listen, when I turn the tone control, that could be the way the wires are dressed too. Wire dressing could certainly cause that, because nothing's bundled right. Everything's all just the way it came out when I opened it up. Anyway, I'm going to finish this one off now. For now, this video has gone on for quite a while, and I say I've spent the better part of the day working on this today, getting it into a better condition than it was when I started. But at this point, waiting for the service manual, or in this case, the schematic and the build manual, so that I can verify that everything's been actually done correctly, since we know that it wasn't, due to all the mess that I found when I opened this thing up. There's going to be a wire, I'm sure, in the wrong place, or a component in the wrong place. Anyway, thanks for watching. We'll pick this up at a future date. Bye for now.